Yeah, thanks, Ihle. Thanks, Jonathan, as well for that concise summary of your position. So my response to that in the article and here basically goes as follows. Let me qualify firstly that I'm only going to talk about government mandates and government passports. There's a discussion to be had about vaccine passports being asked for by private entities, but that's a big discussion that I don't think we have time for here, so I'll leave that aside. But on that point, in my view, a vaccine mandate, literally holding a citizen down and injecting them with the vaccine, and the vaccine passport, if done by government, are exactly the same thing, just through a different method. If you enact law or regulation that says a South African or whoever cannot leave their homes unless they take the vaccine, then you are effectively mandating it. I mean, if you arrive at a store, a private store that's willing to let you in, but the law says you cannot without showing this vaccine passport, then it's really the same as mandating it. No one will really have a choice but to have something injected into them that they don't want. And let me qualify: I'm very pro-vaccine. I think the efficacy has been shown, so I'm not worried personally. But I know there are people who object, and as a good liberal, I must respect their right to make that decision for themselves. Now, I think our constitution does provide some clear guidelines here. I'm not arguing from the constitution. I think as a liberal principle, your self-ownership over your own body is literally where your liberty begins. We can get into private property rights and EWC and all these things, but you can't even get there without starting at the human body. That's where it starts. And Section 12.2b, I believe, says that everyone in South Africa has the right to bodily and psychological integrity, including the right to have control over their own bodies. So I think our positive law, our highest law, sets that beyond question, really. There is the limitations clause, the weasel clause, but that is a pretty high standard to meet. You need to prove that there aren't any less restrictive means, which there are. Certainly, given that most South Africans, quite by far, are quite okay with being vaccinated. They're keen to get vaccinated. People in the riskiest categories seem to be very keen to get vaccinated, above 40 thereabouts. So there we don't need to worry. There are less restrictive means. So I'm not sure the Section 36 weasel test will be passed. And then, of course, just to close off my little introduction is the point of the slippery slope. Now, I'm going to stand by that. It's certainly a slippery slope. Using the argument about the yellow fever jabs, I think maybe we should have objected to that. I wasn't around when that was introduced. I certainly would have objected to that if I was around, especially because it's a government mandated thing that you need to inject into your body. Now, I've had the injection. I didn't think too much about it because there was the process wasn't as politicized quite as much as this is. So there's a lot more coverage to spread a liberal message here. So certainly, let's not say that because we accepted a bad principle in the past, we should continue to accept it. Let's rather work that back and reestablish bodily integrity as an important principle of public policy. And then just the last thing is this idea that because lockdowns have been so bad, we need to get out of it. I agree completely, but let's ask government to impose another authoritarian measure to do that. Now, when you use government's own prior authoritarian illiberal policies to justify more government illiberal policies, you are setting that slippery slope, and you are telling the government, hey, you can just engage in this type of trickery. You can impose something bad on us and then propose something that seems lesser to get us out of your initial own bad policy decision. And that is a freeway to tyranny. And that does lead to self-ownership being as a core liberal principle. really falling away. Maybe not now, maybe in 200 years when we've gone through several stages of this, whereby at that point we will say, but look, we accepted this principle for COVID, we accepted it for X, Y, and Z. What are the libertarians going on about? We're free. We're free as we sit here in our handcuffs. Why are we worrying? So we need to look at the history of government and how it's grown, how it's infringed more and more into into our affairs, and we need to be very careful. And we need to be guided by our very first liberal principles that you can trace back to John Locke, to Frederick Bastiat. Mill is somewhere over there, I guess. But look at Locke, look at Bastiat. These guys really put it very succinctly that you start with the body, you start there, you build out the private property, and sure, if you want to keep people who aren't vaccinated off your private property, by all means, but leave the government out of it. The government isn't there to impose your preferences, your safety concerns on other people. Liberty is risky. Society is risky. That's just one of those things we need to accept if we want freedom. Thanks.